pleasure for me to be here, and thank you, Fred and Jonathan, for cobbling this together and inviting me. Jonathan, you mentioning Jerusalem put me in mind of something that just recently happened in our family. I went to Jerusalem in 2014 in the summertime, and it was a congressional delegation, and you're allowed to bring one family member, and I brought my son Matthew with me, and Hope was there on the congressional delegation also, but Congressman Frank Pallone of New Jersey, and Frank Pallone is the very powerful chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee of the United States House, and well, the thing that happened recently is that Frank's daughter Celeste was on the trip too. Celeste and Maddie are dating now. I said, Maddie, Frank Pallone is a very powerful member of Congress. Don't screw this up. But what a magical place to meet a girl. How about that, in the city of Jerusalem? Thank you for that wonderful speech, Ambassador Tefft. And I don't think you've got a proper introduction. This man is uniquely qualified to talk about Eastern Europe. He wasn't just the ambassador to Russia, he was the ambassador to Ukraine, he was the ambassador to Lithuania, he was the ambassador to Georgia, not the Herschel Walker guy. And John Greenwald, a wonderful, distinguished career in foreign service, a Princeton graduate, a Harvard Law graduate. The brain power in this room is staggering, and I don't mind telling you, that's kind of one of my favorite parts of being in Congress, is you get to run into these really incredible people that go into the foreign service. And Meuser and I are good friends, and we've been good friends for probably 20, 25 years. Our kids went to school at STEM together, and I want to tell you this, that all you read about is fighting and strife in Congress, right? Because they're never going to sell newspapers by saying they're all getting along swell this week on Capitol Hill. But I'll tell you what, we go to classified security briefings together, Dan and I, and the entire Congress goes, and we hear from these diplomats and their insights, and you see John on TV all the time too. I'll never forget, you remember when Zelensky appeared live on video? Volodymyr Zelensky made a live video appeal to every member of Congress, and he showed video of the stacked bodies in Kyiv, and I looked at I'm sitting next to a Republican member of Congress that I've had wonderful knockdown, drag-out battles with, pitched fights with, over all kinds of things, and my eyes were filling up listening to President Zelensky, and so was the man next to me in tears. This is, if there's one tiny, tiny shred of a silver lining of all of this, it reminds us that we're all in this together. In fighting this delusional dream of one man, the demonic dream of the so-called gatherer of the land, I'm here to tell you, members on both sides of the aisle have been eager to defend democracy in Europe and the right of self-determination in Ukraine. We have universally condemned this unprovoked and illegal war and the brutal way Putin has conducted it, through indiscriminate missile strikes against civilians, and occupations of terror involving torture and mass murder and scorching of whole communities in Ukraine. We get these classified security briefings, and what is heartening to me is the quality of the people that appear before us. We get people like Antony Blinken. Antony Blinken, Harvard, Columbia Law. His father was the ambassador to Hungary. He was, I think, the only Eastern European country you weren't the ambassador to. Oh, he's a political director. Lincoln's parents divorced, you know, and he testified about this in his confirmation hearing. His stepfather was Samuel Meuser, who was the only Holocaust survivor of 900 children at a school in a little Polish village. Talked about how his stepfather was on a forced march by the Nazis, and he made a break into the forest during the march, and he found an abandoned American tank and hid inside it until he was discovered. Amazing story. That's Tony Blinken's stepfather. He appears in almost every classified security briefing. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is there. The Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Milley, is there. Director of National Intelligence, Admiral Haynes, is there. Someone with whom I've been particularly impressed has been Deputy DNI Morgan Muir, former CIA high operative, and somebody who really speaks with authority and tells us what the situation is. Look, this past spring, very quickly, the U.S. became a supply department for Ukraine's emergency defense. And we were delivering all sorts of hardware, surface-to-air missile systems, and high-mobility rocket systems, also known as HIMARS, very effective. 1,400 anti-aircraft Stinger missiles, 40,000 Javelin and other anti-tank weapons, 700 tactical drones, 230 artillery guns with close to 1 million shells for them, mortars with over 100,000 rounds, 20 helicopters, 80 patrol boats, hundreds of armored and mine-resistant vehicles, including 200 armored personnel carriers, 100 armored medical treatment vehicles, 10,000 grenade launchers, plus the arms that go with them, 80 radar systems, thousands of night vision devices, thermal imaging systems, laser range finders, and we've also done that in a way that we are providing for the maintenance and repair of this equipment. I was there to see off a company of soldiers from Toby Hanna that went to Poland as part of the maintenance and repair operation. Early on, we delivered much-needed anti-tank systems. Now that Ukraine's on the offensive in the south and the east, we have shifted to supplying more mobile artillery rockets. And it doesn't stop with military aid, of course. The ambassador spoke of the economic sanctions. More than a military fight, we've levied and enforced heavy sanctions on Russia and its leaders that John Tefft talked about. Another regular at these classified security briefings is the Secretary of Commerce, Secretary Gina Raimondo. Now this is a lady to keep your eye on, and she's one of the most impressive people in the administration. She went to Harvard undergraduate, magna cum laude in economics. She was a Rhodes Scholar. She went to New College at Oxford and got a master's and a doctorate. She went to Yale for law school, and she ended up the governor of Rhode Island all before she became the first woman Secretary of Commerce. I worked with her. I took over as chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, Subcommittee on Commerce, Justice, and Science, so I fund her department, and I've gotten to know her. Keep your eye on Gina Raimondo, but she is very eloquent and incisive as she describes many of the things that Ambassador Tefft took you through in terms of the economic impact on Russia. We blocked or restricted transactions with Russia's central bank, limiting its ability to draw on dollar-denominated foreign reserves. We blocked or restricted investing in Russia, selling to Russia, buying commodities from Russia like natural gas, coal, steel, seafood, alcoholic beverages, diamonds, and gold. Some of the sanctions have specifically targeted Vladimir Putin himself, other senior government officials in Russia, and certainly Russia's business elites. In addition, Russian aircraft may no longer enter or use U.S. airspace. Russian-affiliated vessels may not enter U.S. ports. We have enacted a new law prohibiting the import of Russian oil. We've suspended trade relations with both Russia and Belarus, which has aided Russian aggression. And I'm happy to say the EU, UK, Switzerland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, and others have joined us in many of these sanctions, and the reviews are that they are working to put a squeeze on their intended targets. And just last week, I became an original co-sponsor of another bipartisan congressional resolution to establish an international tribunal for the punishment of the crime of aggression against Ukraine. I'm skipping over a very long speech because Ambassador Tefft gave you a lot of the statistics I was going to give you. But I'll say this, one agency taking the lead on humanitarian operations is the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. And they are currently supporting the commercial movement of Ukrainian wheat through severely strained supply chains, providing farmers with seeds, fertilizer, and pesticides so they can continue to plant, providing loans to farmers so they can re-up their annual operations, providing veterinary medicines, including bovine vaccines, and other assistance to over 200 dairy farmers to try to keep Ukrainian milk production intact, providing millions of dollars to the UN World Food Program and other NGOs for food assistance to Ukrainian refugees, providing funding to keep heating systems operational during the cold Ukrainian winters, and supporting vaccinations in Ukraine. Our aim is to help Ukrainians weather this war. It may go on for a very, very long time, and I love that Niels Bohr quote, by the way. It's very hard to predict the future, and both sides are painted into such a corner that it looks like it's going to go a long time. Our aim is to help Ukrainians weather this war in a manner that does not leave them economically and socially destroyed, regardless of the battlefield outcomes. So, in closing, I want to say thank you particularly to the two Johns here, and I look forward to the comments of my brother in Congress, Meuser. Thank you all.